Have you ever had a piece of furniture that has tested you to the point where you wanted to burn it several times? This is one of those pieces. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. This piece should have been done weeks ago, but it wasn't because it threw some curveballs my way and very nearly ended up getting burnt. However, I persevered, I stuck with it. I'm super pleased with the outcome. If you want to see the full story, you're going to have to watch the video. So this piece started out like many others. I took the back plinth off. I don't officially know what that name is called, but I knew I had to come off and it just was held on with 4 screws. So I took that off because I wanted to sand the top down. Obviously, as you can see, some of the original finish has come off and I was going to plan to restain it and paint the rest. So I took the back plinth thing off and then started to sand the top down. Pretty easy so far. If you want to know what sander I use, I'll link that top right now because I've done a separate video on that. But stripping the existing finish off here was super easy. I believe this is mahogany. I'm not entirely sure, but it looks like mahogany to me. It's very red toned and I wanted to basically just strip all the existing finish off. It's got a lovely solid top and restain it. And the plan was to paint it a nice kind of festive red colour. As you can see, I'm doing the usual prep work here, so I'm giving it a clean with Dixie Belle's White Lightning, inside and out. I was just going to plan on cleaning the inside and giving it a lick of Big Mama's butter or something, which is what I usually do on the inside of cupboards. So I gave it a really good clean. It was a little bit dusty, a little bit fusty, as most vintage pieces are, and I didn't really check at this point the door situation. It kind of looked fine at first glance. The handles were a little bit rusty, but that's probably down to where they were stored because I have a lot of my furniture in a big kind of barn, so some of the hardware does tend to do that over time, and I have had this piece for quite a while in storage. So if you've watched my videos before, you'll know that I usually start with my piece upside down, and this piece was a little bit stinky, so I decided to paint the bottom, and this is a primer going on now. So this is Dixie Belle's Bond Emboss. Not only is it a stain blocking primer, it is also an adhesion primer, but within the stain blocking primer it also blocks odours as well. So it's like an all-in-one primer. You really don't need another primer. I'm using the colour grey because, like I mentioned, I was going to paint this red. As you can see, the red colour going on now. Beautiful tone of red. This is rustic red, so it's a really nice kind of cranberry tone, and as you can see, it's going over the grey primer really nicely. Grey primer works really well underneath a red. And this is Dixie Belle's Chalk Mineral Paint range, and here is the door, one of the doors that caused me so much problems. So I'm painting the door now, and then I went on to the top. It's not even 2 o'clock in the afternoon and we're losing the light already. This time of year drives me nuts. Not only does it slow down drying time, but light for filming is dreadful. Anyway, the last thing I'm going to do today is put a coat of no paint gel stain on this mahogany top, or what I think is mahogany anyway, because this tone of that mahogany, it's just not working. It's not, obviously it's not going to work with the red paint colour. So I'm hoping that this shade, golden ash, is going to be dark enough. I don't want this too dark, but I just want to knock out the warm tones, and this doesn't have any warm tones in it. So I'm going to see what this does, but if it's not going to be the right shade, I can go over the top of it in a slightly darker shade, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. So I'm using this, and I'm also applying it with the applicator pads. So these are like a microfiber pad. You can reuse them if you use them with a water-based product. This is an oil-based stain, so I'm not going to be reusing these for that. I'm just going to use it the once and then dispose of it. But these are really good for, let's make a little bit more noise opening it. These are really good for stains because they give you a nice even coat, nice even distribution. You don't get any kind of tide marks or any streakiness with it. So this applies super easy. As you can see, I'm just putting it straight onto the applicator pad, and then I usually do the corners and the edges first and then apply it with the direction of the grain. So in a second I'll change and I'll go in the direction of the grain and I just kind of rub it in. Obviously this is going over raw wood. Application over an existing finish is slightly different, but this is raw wood that had been sanded back. So it goes on super easy, like I say, and I went for this shade because it's my favourite colour, but I am usually working with oak or pine. I don't usually work with red toned woods. So I wanted to use this one because I like it. I didn't want to go too dark initially, and looking at the footage now, it is obvious that that is still pretty red, although it wasn't obvious to me at the time. So the reason I've done that last thing is because with it being an oil-based product, it takes a little bit longer to dry than a water-based product. Even though I'm going over the top of raw wood, the drying time is slightly longer and it is miserable at the minute in the UK. It's cold and damp, which is the worst kind of weather for drying time. So I'm going to put my heater on. I'm going to leave this to dry. I possibly might do a second coat, but I'm going to see what it looks like once it's dried down, and then I'll see if I need to do another coat. So like I say, the reason I'm leaving this overnight is so that I can let it dry properly and then I can top coat it tomorrow, hopefully. Obviously I lied, I snuck back into the workshop a few hours later, and because this was over raw wood, it did dry quick enough for me to do a second coat that evening. So it's the next morning after I've done the 2 coats of stain, and this is the problem with mahogany. It is very warm toned and it hasn't eliminated the warm tones. I don't think there's enough of a contrast between the top and the paint colour, because obviously I've got a red. Can you see? You can just see at the bottom of the camera. Obviously I've got the red and then this, and it is still a bit red toned. So we're bringing out the big boys. We've got espresso. This is the darkest shade of No Paint Gel Stain, darkest brown shade. There is actually a black as well, but I don't want it to be black. So this hopefully will make it darker. I'm hoping I don't lose all of the wood grain, but at the minute it just doesn't look right with the red paint job. So I'm going to go back in with a clean one of these and espresso and see if we can just make it a touch darker. So this is going to go on exactly the same as the other shade that I did. Obviously this is just a darker colour, and as you can see it is completely eliminating all of those red tones in the wood. Instantly, yes, that is so much better. You can still see the wood grain, it's still visible, so I'm pleased about that, because sometimes the very, very dark stains do kind of disguise any wood grain features quite a lot, but you can still see it, but it is just taking it down really, really dark, which means there is a bigger contrast between the red paint job and the top, which looks a lot better in my opinion. So despite having to change the top of the colour of the top, still kind of going to plan. I'm going to top coat it with Terra Tuff, because I have used this combination of No Paint Gel Stain and then top coated with Terra Tuff several times, and I absolutely love the finish that it gives. It dries really durable. So Terra Tuff is actually a top coat that was used, that has been developed for Terra clay paint, because that does require quite a specific top coat. However, I've used it on other things like stain, also chalk paint, and I've also used it over silk as well, and it works beautifully over every single thing I've tried it on. This combination, like I say, it gives you a really nice depth, it gives a nice sheen, it's super durable, and this top coat for me is one of the easiest to apply as well. It's not sticky, it doesn't dry too quickly. I just lay it all down, a really thin even layer with a foam and dandy brush, and then the last thing I do is just wipe it over in the direction of the grain really smoothly to lay it off. Halfway point story time. Okay, this piece has been sat in the naughty corner for a while. I started this piece weeks ago, should have been done. However, everything was going fine, apart from the doors. The doors were, it turned out, long story short, the doors were twisted, warped, whatever, beyond anything that I could do with them. I only realised this after tinkering with them, adjusting the hinges for the best part of an entire Sunday. So I was annoyed when I realised that there was very little I could do about the doors. Looking back at pictures of the before, it's quite obvious. Well, it is now. Hindsight's a great thing. It wasn't then, and I'd whipped those doors off to paint and didn't even look. However, one of the doors, the door on that side, it was warped. Now, I'm no woodworker, but what I am is very short-tempered. So what I did is I put my foot straight through that door because I was really mad and I'd wasted all my time and I was trying to get the piece finished, and I felt like there was basically nowhere I could go with the piece. I thought it was going to be destined for a trip down the garden to the bonfire pile, which has happened before, let me tell you. However, I kicked the door off, I smashed it to smithereens. I'm not proud of my behaviour, but like I say, I'm a bit hot-headed and short-tempered. So I smashed it to smithereens and then I put it on the log burner and it kept me toasty for an evening. So that was good. I was just annoyed because I love this piece. It's really pretty. The doors had some really nice detail on them and I was like, I was really mad. However, a couple of days went by and I started to simmer down a little bit. And I thought, okay, it's a nice piece. It's a nice solid piece. It's still got, the majority of it is absolutely fine. It's just the doors. So I've obviously taken the doors off. The hinges are off also. And as you can see, it's now got a little shelf inside. I'm not going to tell you how I did that because I didn't. Full disclaimer, I am not a woodworker. I don't profess to be. I have no interest in it. Luckily, Handy Andy, aka my other half, ain't too shabby. He's alright. He's quite handy. So he's put a shelf in it for me. It's a nice pine solid shelf. It's actually not fixed at the moment, it's loose. So it's got two brackets that it sits on either side, and it's obviously been drilled in through the sides. The screws have been countersunk, so I need to fill those. I'm going to change it up. I'm going to change this piece completely because the longer I look at it, the longer it reminds me of how much time I spent trying to put the doors on it. So I'm going to change it. I'm going to change the direction completely. We're going to have a little open-fronted situation here. I still don't know if it's going to fully look okay, but it's worth rescuing, I hope. So we'll continue. We'll try and pull it back from the brink of the bonfire pile and we'll try and rescue it. These are the screws that have been countersunk in the side, so I need to fill those in. I'm just using wood filler because they are quite deep, and that is obviously making sure that the shelf supports inside are super sturdy. They've also been put in with some wood glue as well. So it's a proper job, not like if I'd have done it. I also filled in the little bit at the bottom where there was a catch, and also the old hinge holes, which obviously have no purpose any longer. I gave it another clean, obviously, because we'd been kind of working on it and all the things. And I just wanted to make sure I had a nice blank canvas because I'm going to paint the inside of this. It's not the greatest kind of finish in there, and obviously the pine shelf doesn't work with the rest of the wood in there, so I'm just going to make it look nice and cohesive and give it a lick of paint. I'm going to just choose one colour for this, and it's an old faithful colour. I also want to give my friend Linda Leetham a shout out. So her furniture page is Annie Loveday Furniture, and this piece was heavily inspired by her work, and she did suggest to me, along with a couple of other people, that I should try an open fronted dresser and take the doors off and rescue it, because I was almost convinced I was going to burn it. So the colour that I'm going to use is Hampton Olive. This colour never fails me. It's good enough to be a neutral, except that I don't really do neutrals, but it has that kind of, It's an olivey green shade, so in my book it's green, and green is good, but you could pass it as a neutral. It's just a fantastic colour. The coverage is absolutely amazing. It gives me a really good finish every single time, and as I mentioned, I'm just going to do one colour on this, so the entire piece is going to be Hampton Olive. Now this is silk all-in-one mineral paint, which means it's got a built-in top coat. It is super durable. I use silk all the time and I don't put an extra top coat on it. It's just not necessary. It is really durable. So all I did is 2 coats of silk, and that is pretty much it. I also found some old handles that I'd got in my stash because the other ones were rusty and they weren't in the best shape, and that is pretty much it. So here's a few close-ups. Put the drawer back in. There's the vintage handles, the nice brass handles. There's a close-up of that gorgeous top with the TerraTuff top coat, and here's the final look. So thank you for watching the video and sticking with the process. Hopefully you've had a few laughs at my expense in this video. It's been a little bit of a different video to my usual style, but what I can say is that I've learnt loads. I'm really pleased with the outcome. I hope somebody loves it as much as I do. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Bye!